I will run through walls for these people. They're doing it for me. They just inspire me so much that an 11-year-old boy would walk across the United States with charity miles. There's just no words. That's like our unfair advantage. Because if you don't have that, what gets you going when things get hard? And everyone's going to have something go hard.
Welcome to the Shine Strategy Podcast, where entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business owners are getting visible and changing the world. I'm your host, Heather Burgett, an award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and business mentor. Today's show is sponsored by PR Stars. For more inspiration and Shine strategies, head over to shineinsiders.com now for my free masterclass so that you too can get visible and go from local to global. It's time for shout outs. Thank you so much for listening today. And I want to just share from some of our listeners who have some really nice things to say. And I am constantly humbled by these incredible reviews. So thank you so much for listening and taking the time to drop your reviews. And today we're going to give a shout out to Virginia Ursery. She says, amazing, 5 stars. I am listening on repeat. I am so thankful to have found Heather in this podcast. As an entrepreneur, the resources she makes available are priceless. She's an engaging host, and you can't help but be hooked from the first few minutes of her interviews. I can't wait to listen to more. Oh, thank you, Virginia. That is such great feedback. I really appreciate hearing that because, as I've said before in past shows, this is all new to me, so I'm finding my way with it, and I'm really happy to hear that it's impacting you the way it is. And we have another review here from Christine Cataldo. She says, shine on, leading others into the light with each episode, 5 stars. I absolutely love the Shine Strategy podcast. Heather is such a refreshing breath of air in her authentic, real, heart-centered interaction with each of her amazing guests. As someone that is striving to move forward and divinely serve with the gifts I have been given, the podcast shares not only strategy, but so much inspiration. I just love the storytelling and real-world examples. Upon listening, I find myself in a motivated state of I can too. If you have not been blessed by the teachings in one of the episodes, I highly recommend tuning in. Beware, after listening, you will be hooked and like me, waiting patiently for each new episode. Thank you so much, Christine. I am so happy that you have been enjoying and listening to the show, and I hope we can continue on this journey together. All right, everyone, if you are interested in more info, you definitely can check things out at prstars.net. We have a Facebook community, the Shine Strategy Insiders. I also have an inner circle, and that's something I invite you to apply for at the prstars.net website. All right, everyone, with that being said, let's get into it. Hello, Shine Insiders. I'm so excited to be here with you today and introduce you to Gene Gurkoff. He is the founder of Charity Miles. It's an iPhone Android app that enables people to earn money for charity when they walk, run, or bike. And since launching in 2012, Charity Miles members have walked, run, and biked enough miles to earn over $2 million. I think I saw on the website, it looks like it's closer to almost $3 million now. And Gene has a really interesting background that he's going to share with us today. And he was a finance lawyer on Wall Street. And he also worked helping found Team Fox, the grassroots fundraising arm of the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which has raised over $40 million for Parkinson's research. And Gene himself has run over 40 marathons and 6 Ironman triathlons to raise money for Parkinson's research in honor of his grandfather. He's a Global Good Fund Fellow and Men's Fitness Game Changer of the Year. And his app, Charity Miles, has also won several awards, including the 2014 Webby for Best Health and Fitness App and the 2013 South by Southwest People's Choice Award. So this, we have a lot of interesting things to cover today. So with that, let's dig in. Welcome, Gene. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I didn't realize that my bio was that extensive. Whoever wrote that, I gotta
give him, some kudos. Well, you're the one that did it all, so we should be patting you on the back.
Thank you very much for having me. I got big shoes to fill. I listened to your episode with Bob Saget, and man, that's a big one.
Yeah, he's a funny guy too. We had a good time. Awesome. Yeah, well, we're so happy to have you here today. And as I was reading your bio and checking out your website and the app and everything, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like Michelle Obama's dream, since, her whole thing was about keep moving or get moving. And, also, your whole mission seems to be about helping yourself while helping others. So can you speak a little bit to, why you started this and how it all happened?
I like that. Michelle Obama's dream. Michelle Obama, like my wife knows that Michelle Obama is like the one woman that I would leave her for.
She's got those arms, those incredible arms.
How did I start it? Yeah, so I think as you mentioned when you were reading my bio, which I used to be a finance lawyer on Wall Street doing the Lord's work. And at the same time, I was also very involved with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, running marathons for them, helping to start Team Fox. I also did a lot of legal work for them. And I always wanted to get companies to sponsor me, but they would never do that because I'm not a celebrity like Bob Saget. And, I always figured if I could get enough people together, then collectively we would have the clout of a celebrity and companies would want to sponsor us. So I tried, different things along the way, just different ideas. And then when iPhones came out, everybody and their mother wanted an app. And I realized that like, if I could get, maybe this is a way I can get all the people like me together and then companies would want to sponsor us. And so that was like the original idea behind Charity Miles. And then it's kind of evolved since then, since we started it. But that's still very much the core of the idea.
And, it's so impressive that not only the high profile charities that are doing wonderful work in the world that you have involved, but also like some really top sponsors, like we're talking huge companies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got these major known entities to get involved with your app?
Yeah, good question. So on the charity side, because I was very fortunate that I had a lot of established relationships on the nonprofit world because of the work that I was doing with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I was also working for a pretty big law firm in New York City. And because of the work that I was doing with the Fox Foundation, whenever one of the partners was on the board of, say, Habitat for Humanity or one of the other, another charity, I would do legal work for it a lot. So it introduced me to a lot of other great charities. I also, one of those other little things that I tried out along the way was I built another app which totally failed, which was an app that allowed you to send real postcards to your congressman, kind of like for advocacy purposes. And a lot of charities really like that. So charities had been reaching out to me about that. And so I had some relationships with these charities. So when I had the idea for Charity Miles, I was able to go to these, very well-respected organizations, and they liked the idea enough that they were willing to give it a shot, which was actually no small feat because, these charities aren't, just going to take a risk on anything. They're very, they're as protective of their brand as any major company would be. So I was very fortunate to be able to start with 10 great organizations. We've grown to over 40. We have over 2,000 that would like to join us. And the bottleneck there is, just having enough money to sponsor everybody. So we've actually been adding a lot of new features to the app that expand the different sources of revenue that people can earn for their charity. So actually now you can also get sponsored by your friends and family. We are building a portal for companies that want to sponsor their employees. So the more revenue that we have, the more charities we can support. It's actually not revenue for us, but the more revenue that's available for our members to earn, the more charities we can support. And then on the sponsor side, as you mentioned, that was also a very hard nut to crack. So for like the first year, there's a much deeper story that I won't go into, but like I basically sponsored it myself for the first year because we didn't have any companies that were willing to sponsor us.
So tell our listeners what that means. So when you sign up for the app, you are actually, for every mile you run, dance, or walk, you are able to donate?
Mm-hmm. So in the first year, when I was sponsoring it myself, I said, you're going to earn 25 cents a mile for running and walking, 10 cents a mile for biking. And that was going to be up to $1 million. And I didn't have $1 million. I had a partner who the two of us were going to split that. And when it came time, in the first year, we didn't earn $1 million, but we earned, a significant amount of money people earned through the app. And when it came time to pay the charities, he backed out. And
not good.
Not good. And I was like, days away from shutting down the business and letting down all these great charities that had joined us. And more importantly than that, all the amazing members who had joined us. And I just, day by day figured out how to keep it going. And we actually ended up getting our first sponsor, allowed me to keep it going, got our next sponsor, allowed me to keep it going, got another sponsor, allowed me to keep it going. And
so that's actually when the sponsor stepped up, when your back was against the wall. You kind of had to.
They didn't know my back was against the wall. Fortunately, we were able to pull some rabbits out of a hat. And
oh my gosh, isn't that amazing how that works?
Yeah. So I had to also change the business model because the sponsors understandably aren't able to write a blank check and put themselves on the line for an unlimited amount of money. So we couldn't say things like, so after that first year, we're not going to be able to say things like 25 cents a mile anymore. So we changed the model so that the sponsor's money goes into a sponsorship pool. And then at the end of the year, we pay the pool out to the charities in proportion to the miles done for each. So if a particular charity gets X percent of the miles, they get X percent of the pool. And that's how we've been going for like the last 6 years. But there's some weaknesses to that because one of which I kind of already alluded to, which is that we haven't been able to add more charities to the app. We got up to about 40 charities. And then for the last 3 years, the sponsorship pool just isn't big enough to accommodate more charities. If we were to add a small charity, they wouldn't earn very much money. If we were to add a big charity, they would dilute the pool for everyone else. So over the last year, we've really thought, like, what are some other ways that people can use charity miles to turn their miles into money for charity? And so we added where you can get sponsored by your friends and family.
Oh, that's a great idea.
With ad exchanges, which is a separate thing. And then we're adding where employers can sponsor their employees. So those are all unlimited. Those aren't like our sponsorship pool, which is generous but limited. So because those are unlimited, we're now actually able to start adding more charities to the app. And we're adding great charities. We just added the American Lung Association. We added a great charity called Project Purple, Zero Cancer, Action for Healthy Kids, Epilepsy Foundations. We've got this waiting list of like over 2,000 charities that want to join us. So we're gradually building up the infrastructure to be able to support many, many more charities.
That's so impressive. And, it seems like this is a new model, unless maybe you can tell me if other people are doing this. But what I read on your site is that these major sponsors, I think it's, people like Johnson & Johnson. I mean, these are big companies. They're actually allocating their advertising dollars to the app, which is, it seems like a new model. Are they doing this with other organizations or companies, or is yours one of the only ones you've seen using this model?
I've seen some others attempt it, and it's not easy. So, and there's different, cause marketing is, lots of companies do different types of cause marketing. So, that's a situation in which a company is using their advertising dollars to support a cause and to create some kind of a cause partnership out of that. And so we're one way of doing that. I think that we're a really effective way of doing that. And so that's our pitch to companies is, you're going to spend this money on advertising anyway. We can help you reach those people that you want to reach, and we could do it more effectively, and the money's going to go to charity. So, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with your ad budget, but we think that we're a better way than some of these other things that you might be doing with it. It's actually a really hard pitch. And, most often 99 times out of 100 doesn't work. But, we have great sponsors that have been with us for a long time that continue to grow with us. And we're actually able to show them results. Like we're able to show them, and they feel good about the fact that their money's going to charity. I mean, these are companies that want to do good. The fact that they're even thinking this way is remarkable because, they've got a bottom line to think about. They can't just give money away. They need to think about how, this is going to help their business. So, the fact that they're even willing to give us a chance says a lot about who they are as companies. And, when we're able to show them the results, they stick with us.
It seems so brilliant because they have these huge advertising budgets, and the landscape of advertising is changing so much in recent years. And it is a whole new landscape in terms of how companies want to be seen out in the world. And people don't want to be advertised in the traditional way. They don't want to be advertised to in that way anymore. So it does make so much sense that they would get involved with something like this, where they're getting their name out there and being associated with a good cause, and your members, are seeing their names and associating them with something that's a positive experience. So, I mean, that seems like pretty invaluable PR value, even though it's, more of a cause marketing advertising situation. But that's...
You're in the PR business, so like, I'd love to learn from you, like, how do you, when you're working with companies that are trying to generate PR, I'd love to even get like the way that you would think about charity miles for, we're very lucky that we get a lot of press written about us, but like, I'm always the last person to find out about it. We don't,
So yours has been, it sounds like, more reactive PR in terms of people hear about you and then write a story, or they might contact you and say, hey, we want to do something. Right. So I think that's where the real kind of key comes in for, especially, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits over the years, and doing the proactive publicity is where you can really take things to the next level. But just the fact that you're getting the press you have, I saw on your page, it looked like all sorts of great articles and, mainstream magazines, Today Show, and all of these places. And that alone says when you have something that is getting that kind of attention from the mainstream media without having hired a PR firm or rep, and it just sort of organically happening, I would say that's when you're onto something, because a lot of people do pay a lot of money to run these proactive campaigns to try to get what you've already gotten just by the nature of doing what you're doing and having it organically happen and unfold. So, I think, definitely it seems like you've got a great foundation on your PR side, and lots of good buzz out there on what you're doing. And I think I saw too that isn't your app one of the top ones for the App Store for both Apple and...
We're one of the featured in Apple and Android. We've been recommended by like all the major magazines as like one of the top health and fitness apps. And it's cool. It's kind of cool because like we're a pretty small company. We're a very small company. And like all of our peers are these giant companies. Like whenever there's an article like the 5 best fitness apps, it's like Nike and Under Armour and Strava and us. And it's like, those are huge.
Wow. Congratulations. That's huge right there. I mean, alone that, that's amazing.
But it actually has, I think it has actually, a lot less to do with the app itself, because the app is really not that sophisticated. And all to do with our members, because our members are phenomenal. And they're we don't have PR, but like our members are so passionate, and every day they're sharing their miles on social media. And they're saying, I just ran 3 charity miles for Michael J. Fox. I just ran 3 charity miles for ASPCA. I just biked whatever charity miles for this. And that generates so much buzz. And so that's how we grow. That's how other people hear about us and download the app, because we don't spend money on advertising. And that's how the press hears about us and decides to write. And that's how other charities hear about us and want to be involved. And that's actually, most of our sponsors are inbound. I do a lot of outbound work, but like all of our best sponsors are inbound sponsors. So like it's our members that they just have this incredible passion, and they create this buzz just like authentically and by themselves. And that's what drives the train. We've had like 8 people walk or run across the United States with the app. It's like the most incredible thing ever.
Wow.
One of them did it entirely barefoot. He's the first person to walk or run across the United States barefoot. His name is Barefoot Jake.
Oh my gosh.
I was with him on the first day when he started in California. I was with him on the last couple of days when he finished in New York. And then the day after he finished, he ran the New York City Marathon with me.
Wow, that's incredible. How were his feet after that walk?
Like horse hooves. Like his calluses on his feet were... But that's his thing. Like he's always barefoot. And he was one of our first members. Like he was a Charity Miles member from he was probably one of the first 100 or 200 people to download the app. And I would see him tweeting about his Charity Miles, and we met, and then it was a few years into it that he actually went across the country. We had an 11-year-old boy walk from Key West, Florida to the northwest tip of Washington State. 43.
What? Oh my
diabetes, 11 years old, and he walked.
That is incredible.
Like the stories we have people who walk their dogs every day with it. We have people who've done 10,000 miles. Like our members are amazing. Like that's what fires me up every day is our members. And that's, I think, what drives, I could not do it. I'm not that type of personality, but our members are just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And there's something so powerful about the word of mouth that you were talking about. And that is often when press do start to pay attention, when something catches like wildfire or has some momentum or becomes a runaway success. And obviously that's the community you've created, are these people that are so passionate and excited about what they're doing. And they're out there across all their platforms and social media telling the world. And so that's when the press can see something or find something. And that's probably how they've come to you along the way and how you've organically gotten a lot of the amazing hits that you've already landed in mainstream media. So, I will say a lot of times with the press, there's, kind of two main things that they look for when you're trying to get into the mainstream press. One is, they do love something that's totally new, and especially if it's timed, like it has a release date or a street date that, they can time their coverage to it. That's something they love, but then there's also the other side of if you have something that has that snowball effect where it's building momentum and it's catching on and everyone's, jumping on board and it's got a lot of, heat or buzz behind it. That's when the press pay attention as well. They really want to cover things that people are talking about. So I think, you've obviously got something fantastic on your hands here because that's just happened so organically.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an amazing ride, and I am genuinely both very proud of our community and just inspired by them every day. So it's what fires me up.
And let's talk a little bit about your podcast. You have The Extra Mile. And this concept I loved. I was like, okay, I'm definitely not going on this show because I actually was a Division I athlete like in college, but it's been a long time. I played women's lacrosse at UMass Amherst, and I was also a soccer player. And you go for runs with your guests. So tell us about this.
Yeah. So the podcast is called The Extra Mile, and it's a podcast where I interview people who are amazing people like yourself who are going the extra mile in life. We've interviewed Boston Marathon champions, Mev Keflezighi and Des Linden, Catherine Switzer, the first woman to run the Boston Marathon, Diana Nyad, who swam from Cuba to Florida. We've interviewed billionaire entrepreneurs, U.S. senators, incredible people. We've interviewed our members who, are amazing people. One of our members, I interviewed that 11-year-old boy when he was walking across the country. I interviewed Barefoot Jake. I've interviewed. I
saw you at Jillian Michaels.
We had one with Jillian Michaels in Malibu, which is really cool. One of our members is a friend of mine from the Michael J. Fox Foundation. He has Parkinson's and he's been on American Ninja Warrior 3 times. Just incredible people with incredible stories and insights to share. And all of the interviews are done outdoors on a walk or a run. And we invite the listeners to walk or run with us. So I'll usually meet the person in a place that's convenient for them. And I have a little handheld recorder. It's not at all sophisticated. And we go for a walk or a run and we talk, kind of like you and I are talking now, ask them about their stories and try to learn from them, the insights that they've gleaned through their journeys. And there's just something about going for a walk or a run with someone where the conversation it flows in a little bit of a different way, I think, because your bodies are moving in the same direction, your steps are in sync, your breath is in sync. All of my best friends I've made on like a run where we run together and we end up, you start off just running together and you end up having, really personal conversations with them. And there's just something about that shared activity that inspires a closer conversation. And so we've had, really incredible interviews. And I like also that you can always hear what's going on around you. So it does not sound slick. It does not sound produced. It does not sound, there's no editing.
You get to hear life and the sounds of life happening around you.
Jackhammers in New York City. You hear cars, you hear trucks, you hear, with Jillian Michaels, you hear the waves on the beach in Malibu.
Wow.
Crickets in the woods. You hear birds, chirping in Central Park. You can hear a rainstorm, and when we get caught in a rainstorm in one of them, and you can just feel kind of like part of when you're listening to it, kind of part of the experience. And then hopefully, the listeners will walk or run with us. Obviously not required. I'm sure people listen to it not walking or running, but hopefully, you turn on your charity miles and go for a walk. Because like one of the things that I really like to do is, listen to podcasts and go out for a walk. You don't have to be tied to your couch to be entertained anymore. Like,
yeah,
it's great to watch Netflix and all that kind of stuff, but you can just as easily put on a podcast, go out for an hour walk, and listen to a great story or listen to a great interview, learn something, and you're getting healthy. And if you're doing it with charity miles, you're helping to support charity. So it kind of turns that hour of your day that you want to be entertained into another even more, where you can do even more with that hour.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of podcasts. And that's generally the only time I listen to them is when I'm on the go, in the car, like even grocery shopping, like taking the dog for a walk, wherever it might be. Yep. So, okay. Well, I'm glad you do walks too. So that maybe
we can go on a walk together.
Okay. With Huey. We could bring my dog Huey.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we've done a dog walk before.
Oh, okay. There we go. Something new. And what did you do with Jesse Itzler? I love him. Tell us about Jesse.
Jesse's great. He's got an incredible personality. Was introduced to him by a few friends, and then he was one of my first podcast guests. And I met him he has a house in Connecticut, so I met him up there. We went out for a walk and then a run. The podcast part was done on a walk, very hilly where he lives. So I think that if we were running, like, it'd be very difficult to speak because like running up those hills was we were actually even breathing heavy walking up those hills. And
did he do the hill at his house? Because I know he does an event at his house where you run up that hill like 100 times.
Oh yeah, he's got a very, very steep hill in his backyard, and he does an event there called Hell on the Hill. I think it's coming up. It's either like just happened or is about to happen. And so we did a couple laps on the hill, but that wasn't on the podcast. I don't know. And so you're supposed to, in his event, you like go up the hill 100 times, which
I know some people that did it. It truly is hell. Hell on the hill. But
but he's an amazing guy. I've learned a lot from him, not just in the podcast, but, over the years of just knowing him. And
he's got very infectious energy. I saw him speak at an event, and he's, he had the whole thing. And just for those of you that don't know, he's, an entrepreneur. He started, a former rapper who started Marquee Jets and now owns sports teams. And I think he's part of Zico or Zico Water. Yeah. He's got his hands in a lot of different things. He's also married to Sarah Blakely, creator of Spanx. So they're just this amazing power couple. And he had this whole thing where he talked about, and I've heard him talk about this online as well, that, if you look at your life and, how long you're going to be living, like for him, is if he lives to the average age of most men, like he's got however many, 20, 30 summers left of his life. Right. So when you start looking at things that way, it really puts a little fire under you to get, the most out of life.
That's an interesting point, because that's something that he's influenced me on a lot, something that I think about a lot, because my greatest strength is endurance. Like I can go forever. And, if it's always a matter of like putting one step in front of the other and just keep going, and being patient and enduring, like I always win. Like I'm not a very good basketball player, but if the game went to 1,000, I would be the last one on the court. But Jesse just has like an interesting way that I've just kind of picked up about him, that it inspires more urgency to it, because you realize like you're not going to live forever. And it's like, you get these goals. Let's see, could you get this goal done in half the time or in like 90 days? And it just changes the way that you think about things, because with Charity Miles, I've always been on this, patient, step by step, let's keep growing. We'll, keep growing the corporate sponsors, but then, we've got all these charities that would like to join us. And like, I just had to think like more, like, how do I support those charities more urgently? And that's really what inspired me to make a lot of those changes to the app that I shared with you before, where we added in the peer-to-peer fundraising, we're adding in the employee giving, because we're taking bigger risks. We're making bigger changes. It's not just like this iterative step endurance game. It's like, let's try to be more dynamic. Let's try to be faster. Let's try to be more urgent. so that we can help more of these charities make the difference that they want to make in a faster period of time. Because, I just turned 40 years old. If I live whatever it is, with the average age that most men live, like Jesse says, I've only got 30 something years left to do it. So, and I've already been doing charity miles for 7 years. So 7 years go fast. Those 30 years can go fast. So you really want to think you want to think about how you can, be faster with that impact, be faster with reaching those goals that you want to reach in your life.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the charities, I'm looking at your site here, the ones you work with, everything from Alzheimer's Association to WWF, Stand Up to Cancer, Feeding America, Michael J. Fox Foundation, Habitat for Humanity, Save the Children, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It just goes on and on. I mean, these are a lot of these, are people in situations where they don't have a lot of time, where it is a sense of urgency. So the fact that you are making such an impact for these people is really a powerful and wonderful mission.
Well, we're trying to do a lot more. I mean, the thing that, I think about too is that I don't think that we're doing enough, and really want to do a lot more. And that's actually, again, to bring it back to, since you brought him up, Jesse, like he's really gotten me to think about how you can do a lot more, a lot faster.
What was it like working with Team Fox?
They're amazing. I mean, I didn't work for them. I was still a finance lawyer. So when I was in law school, I started to run marathons for Parkinson's. My grandfather was involved with the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, so that's who I was running for. And I started to see at the different marathons, people on Team for Cancer, Team for MS, all these different teams, and there was no team for Parkinson's. So I asked the president of the Parkinson's Disease Foundation if we could start a team for Parkinson's, and he didn't want to do it because, he just didn't want the overhead. There's like a certain ratio that charities try to stay in, which I think is not smart, but they try to keep 20% to overhead, 80% to the programs. They thought this would have a lot of overhead. They didn't have the staff to do it. And then kind of at the same time, one of my grandfather's friends was involved with Michael J. Fox, and I got to meet the co-founder, Debbie Brooks, and I proposed the idea to them, and they kind of didn't want to do it either, but they needed some legal work done, and I was just starting to practice at a very big firm in the city, so they allowed me to do pro bono legal work for the Fox Foundation. And then kind of over the year, they decided, okay, let's pilot this out. And so I was one of the first people to help pilot it out, and have been with them ever since. I've been an ambassador, and really that's like where my heart is. And it's been incredible. I've met so many amazing people through there who are, they either have Parkinson's or somebody that they, some of them actually have no connection to the disease, but they just love the mission. And the people that I've met there are incredible. The organization is phenomenal. They have an incredible philosophy that I've learned a lot from too, which is they're really, a disease like Parkinson's is going to take billions of dollars to cure, or, $20 billion. It's going to take so much more money than any of us can ever raise. So they think like, well, okay, how do we de-risk the research so that the pharmaceutical companies who have the billions of dollars can invest in it? And so they spend the little money they have, how do they create the most leverage with it? And it's just an incredible way of thinking of it, because they have that sense of urgency as well. And how can we, take some bigger risks and make bigger impacts?
And it looks like all of the running and marathons, triathlons that you've done, you've contributed towards Parkinson's research.
Yeah, all my, like the marathons that I run, I'll usually ask my friends to sponsor me, and have raised some money doing that. And then did do the New York City Marathon again for them this year. There's some other great causes that I want to be able to support as well. So I start branching out with that in charity miles too. I love Team Fox, and that's where my heart is, but there's so many other amazing people and causes that I've met through this journey that I want to be able to support.
That's amazing. And there are so many people listening. We have a lot of business owners, experts, consultants, entrepreneurs that listen to this show. And I'm sure some of them have apps. I'm sure a lot of them, I actually know some of them that would like to create apps. What sort of advice would you have for someone that's looking to develop an app?
Definitely don't do it.
Oh no.
Making an app is just really hard. I mean, I wouldn't say definitely don't do it, but most likely don't do it. And like, I didn't not appreciate that when I started Charity Miles. And believe me, like I love Charity Miles and I'm so glad that I do it. And I love the work that I do, but it is really hard and it's expensive to develop. Like if you're not a developer, you've got to hire developers and that's not cheap. And then when you build it, that's like, you're going to put it out there to the world. And then, it's like planning a party and then hoping people are going to show up.
Well, that's where the marketing, promotion, PR, advertising, you have to do all of those things.
And then you got to think about marketing. Like I didn't have any background in marketing or growth or like anything. So you got to learn all these things. But then that's not even half the story. You got to think about retention. You have people that actually download the app and they never use it again. And like, oh, okay, you got a leaky bucket. How do you fix that? And
well, I find it so fascinating that you have such a successful app, but you're still kind of warning people don't do it. That's interesting. So tell us more.
I mean, I have something. People call me all the time with this question, and I'm like, all right, well, we'll sit down and have coffee, and I call it the $500,000 coffee because over a cup of coffee, I'll save you $500,000 because it's so expensive and hard, and like you think you've got this idea, and like it keeps you up at night. And believe me, I totally appreciate the entrepreneur's fire, and like where you just know this is like the next Angry Birds, and you're like staring up at the ceiling and. Like one person's going to tell two people and those two people are going to tell two people and it's going to grow like wildfire. And that there's a lot more science to it than that. And I did not know any of that coming in, but I've just learned over the last 7 years, like 1, building an app is hard. 2, getting people to use it hard. 3, getting them to stick around is hard. And then 4, where does the money come from? Like what's your business model? Who's going to pay you for this app? Is it the people using it? Which I actually think is a good idea. Like, okay, well, how much are they going to pay? What is your cost of acquiring a customer? What is the lifetime value of a customer? If you can figure out that equation and the app is the way to go, then that's great. But if it's like, oh, we're going to get advertisers to pay us, well, you need millions of people to use your app. And that's not even enough because now you're competing with Facebook and Instagram and they've got that locked down. So, just thinking about like what your model is. I think that actually a good way to go, and this is where Charity Miles is like headed to, is for a long time we were like trying to be huge, and like we're lucky that we have lots and lots of people using the app. But I'm really just focused of like I really want to focus. If you can focus on like the niche and create an app or a product or something that just really serves a very small niche, and they're willing to pay for it, or there's some other business model there. But particularly if they're willing to pay for it, we don't have that with Charity Miles because it's a free app. But if they're willing to pay for it. And you can develop that and you have a good balance of, cost per acquisition and lifetime value, then I'd say do it. But also there's probably other ways of satisfying that niche that don't involve building an app.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Would you be more prone to saying, figure out a way to develop it through the web, like do something more like an online site versus an app? What do you usually recommend people do with that concept?
It depends on what you want to do. And it depends on who you want to serve. But, you could start a podcast, right? Like if your goal is serving this niche of people and, maybe the podcast is like, that's a pretty inexpensive way to reach those people. Maybe it's an email newsletter. Maybe it's a membership site. Maybe it's a physical product. I don't know. It depends on the person. But an app is a very expensive way of serving the people that you want to serve.
I guess if you really want to do it, like go all out, because I think there are a lot of smaller apps out there that have sort of limited content and they're a way to get some information out to people that they might need. But to do it on the scale that you're doing it is, for sure, that is a huge venture.
Yeah, I did not appreciate it coming in. And I just didn't know. I was a lawyer, so couldn't foresee all the things that I've learned. But the other thing that I would say is that you have to have, and I'll come back to it, I would have quit 100 times. I would have quit 1,000 times already if it wasn't for our community. Like every day our members are sharing stuff with me on social media or emailing me or pushing pictures in our Facebook group or on Instagram. And I'm like, there's no way. Like I got to figure this out. Like I will run through walls for these people. And because that they're doing it for me. And like they just inspire me so much that an 11-year-old boy would walk across the United States with charity miles. Like there's just no words, there's just no words. And if you don't have that, that's like our unfair advantage. Because if you don't have that, then what gets you going when things get hard? And everyone's going to have something go hard. So any business that you start, whether it's a podcast or an app or whatever, a regular business, things are going to get hard. And if you don't have something that is like going to push you through, like, I don't know what other people fall back on. I'm very fortunate that I've got a lot of fire under me.
Yeah. And that's, really connecting to your purpose and your mission and your why. And you have something that is so heartfelt, and these people are counting on you now, and all these organizations and your members. And so it must almost feel like at this point, you created this thing that took on a life of its own. And now it's sort of almost this like moral responsibility to like keep it going and make it successful. Absolutely.
Every day. That's what fires me up every day.
Oh, I love that. Let me ask you, if you could go back in time and give advice to a younger version of yourself, what would that advice be?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you on that one. I might have to think about that one.
Percolate on that one.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish that I had, this is trivial, but I wish that I had learned how to play music. Like, I don't have any like musical talent at all. I have a 3-year-old son, and he loves the drums and he loves music. And like, I just can see that he's going to be very musical. And I see other people who are able, like my age, or who have music in their families, and that's so nice. I wish that like when I was in 4th grade and my mom was trying to teach me, like, practice your saxophone, or like, I wish that I had like taken to that more. Than I kind of thought it was stupid and didn't want to do it. So like, I didn't practice, but I wish that I had more music in my life. And it's kind of tangential. It really has nothing to do with any of the other stuff that we're talking about, but
I think it's important to have creative outlets, especially as entrepreneurs. We need something to keep us sane, and tapping into that creative side of us is so important. Do you find that you have other creative ventures that feed that part of your soul, or what really helps you on the creative side?
Well, I think, everything I do is, I do think that being an entrepreneur is creative. So I think that is like my creative expression. I write all my newsletters personally. When I was little, I wanted to be a writer. So I feel like I get to be a writer now. Like I'm telling stories, I'm writing from the heart. And that's, really how I get to express myself creatively through, the way that the app is designed, to the features that we add, to the way that I think about the business, to everything that we write in our newsletters, and then the way that we communicate. I think I do love that. I love the creative expression.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's a lot of my creativity comes through writing as well. And there's so much writing involved. Like, as you said, when you have a business, an entrepreneur, you're constantly having to connect with other people, whether it be through newsletters or articles or, updating your website, whatever it may be.
There was this young woman, I think she's younger than me. She's definitely younger than me. So she's probably in her 30s. Her name is Anna Judd. She was the first person to run across the United States with charity miles. And she is like an artist out in LA. And she decided that she wanted to run across the country. She's like a hippie artist. She's like, I want to run across the country. I want to do it for a cause. And so she decided to do it for veterans, because she, as like a pacifist hippie, felt like she had no connection with them, and she wanted to build a connection with this group that she didn't really understand. And when I asked her about, why she was doing what she do, she's like, well, I'm an artist, and this is my performance art. My running is my performance art.
Oh, wow.
And I like that too. I've started to think about, the running I do, not just and the walking and the other physical things I do, is not just a way of, being fit or doing something, but as a way of telling other people a story about what's important to me if I'm running for Parkinson's, or if I'm running for another cause, but also telling myself about what's important to me. It's like performance art for myself. And what's the story that I'm telling myself? What's the story that I'm telling my son, through my actions? So in a way, I think of that as a creative endeavor too.
That's such a cool concept and a new way of looking at running. So maybe if I look at running that way, I can enjoy it more, because I always did running sports like soccer and lacrosse, but it was, I could do something while I was running, but just to run was never like, a thing that I wanted to do. But that gives it a whole new perspective. So we'll have to noodle on that. Tell me what else is coming up that you're most excited about.
Well, I'm really excited about the changes that we've been making. And this is kind of like I'm really excited about the employee engagement, getting that into the app. I think that that's going to be huge. We've probably between 5 and 15 companies a week that email us that want to sponsor their employees. Some of them are kind of doing it already, even though we don't have something for them. And I think that is going to just exponentially change the game for our charity partners. And what else? Personally, I'm excited. I'm doing the New York City Marathon again this year. I kind of do it every other year. And for ironically, when I was a finance lawyer, I was much, much faster than I am now. I trained a lot more. I was able to get in a lot more miles. And since starting Charity Miles, I've gotten a lot slower. So I've been now that I've turned 40, I'm trying to get a little bit fast again. So I'm excited for the New York City Marathon to see, if I can actually put in a respectable time there.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, we definitely wish you lots of luck with that one. And how can people find you and all of your platforms? Give us all your details and info where people can get more info.
Everything is Charity Miles, charitymiles.org. You can go to the App Store and just search charity, and we'll be the first thing that comes up. All the social media channels are Charity Miles. And that's pretty much where it is.
Fantastic. And the podcast, again, is called...
the podcast's called The Extra Mile.
The Extra Mile. Perfect.
Yeah. And if you search for Charity Miles, that'll come up too.
Beautiful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for all that you're doing to help make the world a better place and help so many people with this mission of yours. And any last thoughts for our listeners today?
No, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share what we're doing with your community. And hopefully if people out there are interested in learning more, check out the app, download it from your app store, check out our podcast, hit us up on the website, send me an email. Would love for you to join our community. Thanks so much for having me on.
Beautiful. Have a wonderful day, and thanks so much.
You too. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the Shine Strategy Podcast. I invite you to join me at shineinsiders.com for a free masterclass where you can get more inspiration and strategies to get visible and change the world. Your voice matters. Please subscribe, rate, and share this show so we can continue to grow on this journey together. Until the next one, it's Heather Burgett, your Shine Strategist, signing off.